Hello, thank you for being with us. The New Life Educational Series with Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello, Dr. Laitman. Hello, everyone. Hello, Nitsa Mazuz. Hello. We're welcoming you to join our discussion today. We want to learn from Dr. Laitman how to build our life here in Israel like one big family. What does that mean, one big family? That you wake up in the morning, that you feel that people love you, that are thinking of you well, to wake up with a big light in your eyes. Each person in their own family and all of us together as a new Israeli society that is building for itself a new life like a family. To understand what it is, a family, in each discussion we try to take a certain aspect of our Israeli culture. Sometimes we go further back to our Jewish culture and we want to learn from the things that happened in the past, how we need to go forward to the future. And in our discussion today, we want to dedicate it to a very special angle. We want to choose big female characters from our history, Jewish history, and we want to understand their attributes, their characteristics, what made them special, the special characteristics in each woman that we can use to move forward to a new life. Nitsa, can you open the discussion for us and take us into the world of a significant woman? When we look at our history, we see that there's lots of women that led very significant changes in society, in the nation, some women that saved the nation and changed its destiny. And we want to look and see what characterized them, what the general lines were that directed them. These are women that are like an example, a symbol, and even an incredible sample for society, and we want to delve into this and learn from them. But perhaps before we go inward, we have a more general question about the role of women in that system called one family, that same vision of one family. What's the woman's role as you see it? A woman's role is, I would say, to maintain the family, the family framework, to develop a family and a family framework, to awaken the man to this, to direct him toward this, and to carry this on, because at the end of the day, throughout history, since we were in a natural family, in the caves and in villages we used to live in, and right up to today, where we are in a non-stop process of building the family, that right up to the first man, we were naturally in a family format, and the first time that the ego came up was discovered between a man and woman, between each of them. It was in the case of the first man that we studied a little bit, not like this, but I don't want to get into criticizing, comparing what actually Eve was asking Adam for. She was asking him to be closer to the family, to look after the family more. She discovered that between them, the snake is coming between them, the ego. Each of them with their interests, personal interests, their desires. And something's happening between them. There's something gone wrong. That he's not looking after things enough, and maybe she's not either. But this discovery came from the woman's side. And since then on onward, we see that family is an effort. It's something that has to be built. It doesn't come naturally like for animals. Up until then, it was like that each one felt, yes, according to what I am, she'll be at the same height, the same taste, the same direction, from the same families. Everything's clear. And there wasn't this whole egoistic nature burning between them, that each one wanted to take advantage of the other, etc. From the first man, Adam, and onward in the family, not just between people, also in the family, came the ego and the role-playing and people want to take advantage of one another. And up to our days, it's reached an extent where we don't even want a family anymore. We don't want to get married. We don't want to be obligated. We don't want kids. We don't want anything. What do we need that for? 6,000 years have gone by since the time of Adam. But still, the family is the foundation for everything. And if it carries on like this, then we'll reach a state where those civilizations, Islam, other places, Africa maybe, that they're still multiplying. All the other countries are descending, in America, South America, and in China. There's a lot of problems. Pensions for the elderly. And they have to fund the pensions. There's lots of problems. But no matter which way we look at it, we see that if we advance, it used to be 8 kids, now it's 3 kids. We see that our ego is the reason for it. It's acting in such a manner that it's distancing people, even in a family. Once upon a time, we used to say, my house is my castle. My house is my castle. And today, it's really like that if I'm alone. If I'm with my family, then all the enemies are sitting in his house. That's how it turns out. There's no way around it. And Eve was the first to discover this. And she's the mother of modern humanity, even though it's 6,000 years later, but the same problems, the same issues that they discovered, she actually discovered, and the man, as usual, he didn't see anything. I think we agree that he doesn't see a lot of things, especially things that are wrong with the family. A woman is always saying we have to talk about our relations. That's how it used to be in those days, and it's like that today still. Now, I don't know if he refused or not, but somehow people started looking after it. We see that it's in the culture of each and every nation, that they go to wise ones, he has a house, all kinds of things. Since then, you can say it's a family which means connection between people where each of them feels that if they didn't have this mutual obligation, he wouldn't belong to the other. It means there's something here beyond the beastly existence of ours, which is truly obligating us. Children, household, the society. They used to force people for many generations, and we see that lately it broke. We don't obligate anyone. I go, I come. It's become easier. Our ego doesn't allow us anymore. But a woman still, she always awoken these things. Because the point of creation, the goal of creation, if we look at nature, is that we'll all be one family. Because in nature, we discover, and especially today, we discover, thanks to this crisis that we're going through, that we have to be connected to one another, like all of nature, like all of general nature, and to be in harmony with nature. And only then we get an ability to thrive in all parts of our lives. We want to be connected, and the connection starts in the family, which is actually the foundation. It's all the foundation of society. And then to the settlement, the city, between countries and the entire world. Today we see that we're discovering the network connecting us between all people, that we can't get away from it. And if we look at it in a global manner, we're destroyed a global family. We're all arguing with each other, even though we're brothers. And I think that here as well, if we're already jumping to the end of the story, here we also need to, a woman needs to get up, a persona, maybe a big women's organization that will shake things up and say, stop. We need to verify again what's happening in our family. We need to see what's happening in our homes, and let's arrange everything. And a woman, as usual, calls the male figure, the general male figure, and the kids, that she feels that she's in charge. And we know that in the house, a woman manages, and she calls everyone to get their act together. So I really hope that in the near future we'll see such a woman in some international organization that gets up, despite in the meantime women are still not in the front of all this advancement, human advancement. And a woman gets up and says, that's it, I've had enough, we have to arrange our home. After Eve, we see that the second time it happened, that a woman's role that she acted in a very outstanding manner, that's Sarah. She acted truly alongside Abraham. She was bent over. She opened her own tent, and she received all the women to her tent, and Abraham received all the men, and that is how they connected everyone to one family. She on the side of the females, and him on the side of the males. They had a big group where everyone decided to be love thy neighbor as thyself, in mutual compassion, mutual empathy. That's how he taught the men. She taught the women. They connected. They got married. There were lots of kids. Came out of this group. In a few generations, it became the nation of Israel. Sarah worked very clearly and in a very highlighted manner next to Abraham, and she managed everything, the entire process. It's truly a very big role, especially because we know that if women, it's sometimes easier to work with women, and sometimes it's more difficult. So we can say that thanks to her, truly, we got the land of Israel, because we know that, like in a family, everything depends on the woman. The father is not capable of doing anything. maintaining the whole, educating the kids, connecting, educating, especially since they were in systems, schools, educational systems, everything was the women. The woman is the pension, the health, the food, the kitchen, everything around the house. It's the sheep, the cows, the agriculture, everything is the women. There's nothing that really belongs to a man, to the man. Therefore, we have to see that her role was very important and determined things. I don't want to delve too much into mothers. Rivka, Rachel, Leah, Osnat. Also on the good side and also on the bad side. It depends who we're talking about. There's Potiphar and Osnat, and then Batya bat Paro, and then Tzipporah, his wife, that also helped him a lot and educated his children. And Miriam, which is the most important role. She helped Moses grow. And then she helped him his whole way. She used to lead all the women next to him in the exile from Egypt. We don't really see it because a woman always works more modestly, with more power than men, but with more modesty. Today we also say that behind every successful man is a woman. His success is because of the woman who's directing him and telling him and giving him some tips. He, of course, has power himself, but without the support, nothing will succeed. Miriam here is a prophet, first and foremost, like our mothers. Prophet means a person who's in direct contact with the Creator, with the upper force, with the universe governing our world. I'm not talking not just religiously, but a person who knows nature, that knows the system, how it operates, how inanimate, vegetative, animate, what program it advances with to that goal that everything will be in harmony. Nature is pulled toward harmony, toward one family, so a woman feels it from her stomach. A man, not so much. Therefore, he has to be directed toward that. So, listen, son, to your mother's Torah. The Torah comes from, the Bible comes from the mother. How to arrange it comes from father. Miriam did all this work next to Moses. In every place. We don't see it as usual. But at the Mount Sinai, when women were standing around the man, and they were actually obligating the man, we have to build ourselves, we have to build ourselves as one family, to be as one man with one heart. All of Israel are friends, to be in mutual responsibility. This is actually a family. And women are the ones that stood on the side and pressured the men. They stood around the mountain, and the women and children stood around them, and they were really pushing and obligating the men to receive this condition, that without this, we're going to lose ourselves. will no longer be the nation of Israel. The nation of Israel is according to Abraham, our father, that taught us that we are a family despite our growing ego. So we have the Mount Sinai between us, Pharaoh, this whole great ego is breaking out between us, and we're fighting, and we have all kinds of calculations, this with this. This is called that just now we got a little bit rid of Egypt, but we're still really in it. And all of the work of Egypt is to connect between us. And Pharaoh is always trying to disconnect us. And we want to connect, and he's separating us. So there was mutual work between men and women to be connected, to really maintain that same principle of one family. We have to see all of humanity, how it is approaching the Judgment Day, just like at the state of Mount Sinai. Do you want to be one family? Now also we're especially in that same spot. We can get into depth about things that happened in history, for better, for worse, that caused to the history of women. I want to say women were always, they used to always get up and be discovered to be the turning point, the breaking point. When a woman gets up, she shakes everything, and she says, this is correct. She can no longer hold it in, and it breaks out. We see it in families. I hear that. It's quiet, quiet, quiet. The man doesn't see anything, and all of a sudden, what happened? What happened to you? 2 months, 3 months, everything was quiet. He doesn't understand that there was a fire brewing, and he doesn't understand what happened. And with her, until it breaks out, it was all burning inside. So something like that we see in history. That we see women who were outstanding women at certain points in history. It's because there was truly something burning inside them, and then a woman gets up, and thanks to her, something is overturned, and we continue on a new stage. This is in the Bible, where they spoke about women, and all the women that are featured there, and also the Queen Esther, and that's clear. The process that was determined by them were very high spiritual stages that would influence, they would influence for the sake of correcting the nation. Also in Purim, we have to connect together. We all have to pray. What Esther says to Mordechai, you have to, she teaches him, go to the people and tell them that they will pray and everything, and I'll manage with the king if they support me, and everything will be fine. She determines, we see it. Maybe we'll ask a few questions because we have, you already have questions? Okay. Let's look at Miriam before we go forward. Because we have a few characters and each one is a symbol of some attribute. I can talk a lot about mothers, but that's a little bit, there it's a little bit more hidden, how each one acted to the right, to the left, how to connect the family, where there's chesed, din, rachamim, how each of them acted in a different manner to bring a family to a single foundation. But those are things we'll learn separately in the future. Now, when we look at Miriam, we see that she was a very inspiring and charismatic character. She led people after. She took drums, and she took everyone after, all the women. What is there in that characteristic? How did she actually manage to do it, and what's the significance of it today for our Israeli society? We have to. We need a big, beautiful, strong women's organization that will have Miriam's job, that will truly awaken women, all women, that will awaken them to the special work of connecting between women, not just for nothing. The connection between women is not a very easy thing, and it's not according to a woman's nature, but the connection between them in order to obligate the men to get into mutual connection, what we need to reach one family. There's a separation of roles here, very clear. A woman that demands the connection and a man that carries out the connection. If they get mixed up in their roles, they can't do it. A woman feels there has to be some connection here, and she demands it from her man. The man's like, what do you want from me? You have to do it. He doesn't feel anything. This is the problem, that if there's a connection between men and women, if there's a mutual going into one another that's desired, that's soulful, spiritual, conceptual, the problem is what she feels as a deficiency, I need to feel as a deficiency. And what I can carry out, she has to accept. It won't work with just one. I usually hear, she'll be fine. Or why doesn't he do this? A woman demands from a man something to carry out, and he doesn't feel it at all. He doesn't feel any deficiency for it. He doesn't even know what to do. He doesn't understand what she wants from him. And if he understood, he would carry it out. So here we need to understand how there has to be between them special communication, this connection, that he will feel her deficiency, and that she will also understand that without her working on a situation so that he will feel her deficiency, he won't know what to do. It's like a kid that until you explain to him exactly, he'll know what to do, but that's what we need to bring into him. Some big, strong machine without a battery, or a big computer without a program. We need to put it in there, and then he'll carry it out. A man's role is to be operated by a woman. There's no problem with that. And if he's activated by her, and if he feels her deficiency, he'll do it. There's no man that won't do it. It's nature. There's no question about it. But the question only is, in the connection between them, that one doesn't convey to the other the deficiency, the lacking. What are lackings? Lackings for correcting the family, for correcting the connection, for correcting the chisaron from the word, what am I missing? Yes, that's what a woman says to a man, and he stands shocked like a big baby. He doesn't understand what she wants from him. What does mommy want from me? As if it's really like that. We need to just understand it. Therefore, all these lackings come from a woman right up till today, from Eve and onward. So what do we need to do to direct a person in the right direction? And it's not happening now, so now we prefer to just divorce. Everyone will be by themselves. Look how far it's taking us in our development. That same first deficiency that Eve mentioned, all the rest of our women they went to Eve understood that, and she went towards the correction. And there were others beside her, and in their work together, they And we are continuing this until today, but we see that in all the places, in the meantime, we are losing. There's no such thing as families that are happy nowadays. And I think women also were happy at one time, but he didn't even know what to do. But every woman is attracted to it, and every woman really wants it. The only problem is the connection. That's the whole world's problems, that we have this huge system, that it's the system of our home, all the world, and we don't know how to tie all these things into one framework that's called a home. Throughout the country, one house that's for all of us. I'd like to delve into this story about Miriam a bit more, not so much in the past, but more in the realm of characteristics, female characteristics. And I want us to try to highlight for every woman listening to us, how can she connect to this attribute of Miriam inside her. It says that Miriam, what was special about her is that she managed to take all the women along with her. You know, women, sometimes it goes easier with them, and sometimes it also goes difficultly. And Miriam, what was special about her is that she brought all the women after and came out with drums and dancing, and her leadership, her ability to lead and direct the women to a positive direction. That's what's most pronounced in Miriam's story. How can I, as Miriam today in our modern life, how can I peel off all kinds of covers and peels that are disturbing me from connecting to this special attribute of women, this attribute that Miriam had, and that same power. That same power I can get in my society, and I can lead and people after me. Maybe in my workplace, women that I work, maybe not just women. How can I make this story my daily reality? How can I awaken such some powers inside of me? They said that Miriam even had a magnet inside her, that she led people after her. How can a woman today develop that inner magnet? The thing is that first of all, we have to we need to understand that this position is very special. Miriam was not special until the exile of Egypt. She came from the same source as Moses, from the same family. Her big sister. And when she left her role, she left it completely. Otherwise, she wouldn't have left. And it was hidden, even though she supported Moshe and Aaron in the whole process. She didn't really reveal herself to the group like we need to understand that the moment we truly reach a state where that there's no choice, we need to rise above our ego to build ourselves. We need to build ourselves as one family, and only in that we will be in harmony with nature, and then all the problems and blows and suffering and everything, it will all go away. And then we will discover in us the force of Miriam. It will be discovered in us. It's very deep stuff, but it will be revealed. I don't think that in the regular situation, where we don't feel a threat, that women are capable of connecting around a woman according to the concept of connection, but rather only in discovery of the evil inclination, the strong deficiency from their side, that there's no choice. I have to do it. Each and every one will say to herself, for the sake of my family, for my sake, for the sake of my people, etc. And then she will take upon herself that same leader to act as Miriam. We need to still see here how rotten we are, and it's in mother's nature not to be, unless it's in Chassidut. I want to ask you on a personal level, not on a society level. Those are big things. I want to ask on the level of personal. How do we take this ability to attract people to good over the bad? That's clear. The question is, how can a woman awaken this inner, how does a woman awaken this quality? But not to lead, but that she'll have the ability to help the other people around her to grasp. We're saying that all the human existence is flowing like a river into a very lofty goal where we're all uniting to be like one family. How can a woman take this insight, this feeling, and awaken inside her, around her, with such power and with such inner force that she can even radiate, even without words, that she'll have something that can attract people around her to this direction? She is the educator. I'm not even talking about in a verbal or some... how can we have like that she's like a magnet that attracts people, that she can help the people around her to connect to this direction of the natural development? What can she do to strengthen this force inside her? It's difficult. We're talking about a people that's in a situation like the entire world. There's no prophet in a city. When people look at each other and they disregard each other from scratch, I don't see that it's happening. Our world is run by force, power, and not good definitions, special attitude from between man to man. Also, where can we where do we see examples of this? Where is a woman who truly wants something? Can a woman truly express herself in a way that she'll be understood? With her inclination for the family, modesty, and suddenly she'll begin to stand out and start helping everyone. She wants to be a leader. I don't see practically how it's possible. But I'm not talking about the public level. I'm talking about the interpersonal level. I'm talking about the connections between people. There's a person that can attract people around him, attract people after him to a good direction. Miriam is a symbol of someone with the ability to direct people to the positive side of our development. And my question is not in huge, big things, public things, but in each interpersonal interaction, how a woman can use this inner power to direct it even without words, in the whispers of her heart. How can she direct the people she comes into contact with? Maybe it's difficult to verify it. It's very personal. We're talking about correcting the heart. And after we find this correction, then we can help each other like this, between the neighbors in the same city. But I don't think that, I don't know what to say to you. Let's go forward with it, and maybe we'll figure it out later on. I think that if a woman wants to make other women feel good, then it will be felt. There's no some manipulation happening here. It all depends on her inner correction, and I don't think it's possible unless you go through the integral education. How do we go forward, Nitsa? Let's go on to the next character, Dvorah, the prophet. What's special about her is that she was in a very special period when the tribes were divided, everyone was looking after himself. There was no connection between them, and she made an effort. She tried to unite the tribes, and there's something very interesting here. She was a judge and a prophet and a poet. She wrote a special song. What can we do as women today? What can we learn from that symbol, Dvorah? It's a woman who she was above all the men in her time. In her generation, there was no one more righteous than her, wiser than her in her time. She was the judge. That's the highest state. There's no higher than that. She's a judge. It's like the creator, the upper force in our time. That's a woman's role. We see that a woman that can get higher than a man. There's no comparison between a man and woman. If there were no men in her time that could rise up, usually the correction is by men. The thing is that in her time, it was a very divided generation. And there was not one single male force, but everything could only be from the side of the woman's side. To discover the bad. There was discovery of bad and doing good. There were periods like that, eras. And she was in the generation of discovering evil inclination and getting away from the evil. And that's what comes from the woman's side. And then comes the man's side that corrects it and does good. That's what she did. So what is a heroic woman? Hero in that she overcomes. Also, thanks to the men, you can say. They all supported her. All the men would come to her to consult and get advice. She was above them because it was an era like that, that a woman has to be higher than the man. She saw like a catastrophe coming up, just like in the family, and she said, up till here, that's it. We can't go on like this. It's not just by chance, it's a whole period where there was a big fight, and she would somehow try to complete things. It's possible. I don't know how it happens in the eastern, in Russia, in southern Russia. The term mother, that people come to her and bow down to her and ask her, and what she says is sacred. That's how they used to think of women, as I know. They were very strong.
אני חושב ודאי שאיבדנו את זה, אבל בכל זאת גם היום.
But also today,
אני חושב אצל יהודים,
with Jews, the term mother is more,
רחב וכבד ממושג
it's heavier than the term father. There's something about it. It's the home. The woman is the home. And the home is a vessel. It includes everything. It's where we are.
כאילו נמצאים כולה תחתיה.
Everything's under her.
שאני מנסה לעשות אנלוגיה לתקופה של דבורה והפירוד הזה הגדול.
When we think about this era of Dvorah and our period today, the Israeli period, I feel as if there's something that reminds similar. We're also in some total separation today. Nothing's changed, but it's as if in the sensation we're like just flowing in this flow of life, like Oren explained, and no one's really standing up and saying, hang on. And no one doesn't have to be a certain person, but each one in herself can say, hang on, in my family it can't go on like this. In the society that I'm living in, it can't go on like this. In the era I'm raising my kids in, I don't agree that it will be like this anymore. And from that place, what can awaken in each and every one of us? That same image, that Dvorah that says, hang on, up till here, that's it. I think it's a great example for what women especially have to do. Because we're in a situation of division of the nation, not less than what used to be between the brothers, between the tribes. And sometimes I see fights between religious and secular, civil wars. All we're missing is the Ethiopians and the Russians. And even if there's no war, there's like distance, hatred, disregard for sure. If we have to get close to the term of one family, it's starting to be... It's very, very concerning. If we're saying it's all the countries, look at Europe, look at America. If we're looking at the goal of society, and especially getting out of the crisis, if we thought about getting out of it and getting toward this term of one family, and Israel has to give an example before everyone else, then we have to be concerned that we'll have Miriam and Dvorah and all the great mothers, and that they will discover they have to discover what Eve discovered, that evil, and they have to obligate themselves to connect, and they will demand the men to connect. And a woman who demands from a man, he can't say no. If they connect, if they would demand from society, if they would demand men to correct themselves, the men would have to do this correction. It all depends on a woman. A woman has to awaken men to the work of correction. That's why behind every successful man, there's a woman pushing him toward that. And without that push, he won't get up. He can't do it. He won't have this push, this urge to do it, like a mother who's always directing him. It reminds me, like every morning, there's always the mother that gets up first, makes all the sandwiches and everything for the day. So the mother is the one awakening. The mother she just directs everything that happens in school with the kids. There's something else interesting in the story of Dvorah. The story of Dvorah is very special, that it says Dvorah sends and calls Barak ben Avinoam and tells him we need to go out to war. She's pushing him, get up, go to war. And he says, and she says, if you go with me, I'll go. And if you don't come with me, I won't go. And it's one of the most outstanding stories that the man is saying, I'm dependent on you. If you come, I will go after you to this war. Not even after you, in front of you, but you're behind me. Tell me what to do. And you're planning. You're the strategist. You're telling me what to do. What's this story trying to show us about the female power? Everything. What do you mean? I, as a child, I was afraid of my mother, not of my father. I'd come back from school with not such a great mark, and I was afraid of my mother. I did some homework. Something wasn't okay. I made the page dirty. She used to rip the page up and say, do it all over again. She was very demanding. Mother's the one that pressurizes us. The father will do what she'll push him to do, and he'll push the kids. But without that, he has no power. Tell me something. Who do we receive all our upper inspiration from? From mother. From the mother. The mother is the lofty one. It's from her. From her you get life. She gives birth. She breastfeeds you. She supplies you the whole way. Everything comes from her. It's everything we spoke about. It's as if the men and women are like some. They're a combination, a very sensitive combination. To connect them to one family, we need here to understand how they complete one another into a ball. But in this ball, in every place, you have parts that are the women and parts that are the men. And then if they're connected together, like plus and minus in every place, like in every cell, you have positive and negative elements, pushing and pulling. One is putting the material in, and one is getting the garbage out. It all has to be connected in a complete manner. That's how it is technically, and that's how it is at all the levels. That's how it is in electronic atoms and molecules. Plus and minus. That's how it is in the materials, the flow of materials in the cells of inanimate, animate, vegetative. It's also in our thoughts at the human level. In a program 0, 1, its program is based on. There's only two of them, and the correct combination between them comes the flow of life. Or the opposite, or it's blocked. And there's nothing, there's no flow of life. And in all these things, what carries life out is the woman's desire, malchut. She wants a family, she wants to give birth to kids, she wants to be a mother, and therefore this desire determines the continuation of humanity. And the man carries it out. We see it until today, that's how it is. But let everyone act the way they need to correctly. That's where the integral education comes, that shows us how to complete, to truly match ourselves and complete, so they'll only be complete together. Men and women, the Shekhinah is, the divinity is between them, the revelation of life. Another important point about Dvorah, before we go on to the next character, what Dvorah did in her songs and her poems, she complimented the tribes that joined them, and she told them, the ones that didn't join, she said they weren't okay, just like a mother scolds her children. She said, you didn't behave in mutual responsibility. It's a very nice attribute that a mother is an educator. She tells them what's right and what's wrong and what has to be corrected. That's why I think that we need to build a very strong organization of women that will give an example, an education, and a framework, the correct framework for each and every woman, that she will know how we can advance toward that same single family in which we'll feel peaceful. About an organization, that's more at the public level. We're another minute, we're at the end of the show, and I'd still like to try. We'll do another discussion. There's a lot to talk about. I would like to conclude, make a summarize here, not to the public, but not about an organization that will take us forward in Israeli society. I'd like us to describe to ourselves now one woman who hears this discussion today. How can we talk to her and tell her and speak directly into her heart in a manner that she will feel and connect to her ability to advance those around her toward the direction of one family? Apart from her public acts, and how can she, in her circles, spheres of influence, how can she advance this vision, this wonderful vision you're describing of building the new society that will be like one family? Let's talk about it. To conclude our first discussion on this subject, let me maybe say it in a general manner and not privately for a woman. I would say like this: we are still in a general crisis that maybe not everyone feels it, but we will feel it soon, all of us, that this is the case. This general crisis is due to us not being one family, not being connected. That is the reason for the crisis. This crisis began from the time of Adam and Eve, and it has to finish when we finish it, or 6,000 years of the world as it is written. If we drag it out, it will take another few hundred years, but we can reach the correction. Not that the world won't exist after these 6,000 years, but the correction has to end. But it will either end in a very difficult manner that will go into a greater, deeper crisis in everything we're in, or will correct. The correction is actually to bring everyone to this image of a single family. If we look at it, we understand that in that, the main role falls on women. Therefore, every woman must understand that the correction of the world, the good of tomorrow, the light for her personal family, for the entire world that are dependent on one another, for her children, for her grandchildren, it all depends how she will awaken women's hearts to being responsible for the future of the world. And then, not the young generation, and not men, and not some, nothing, just women, which is more than half of the world, that they will get up and demand from men, finally, like a woman says, in the family, enough. I can't carry on like this. Everything has to change here. Let's correct the situation. Let's arrange it differently. We need to organize things. She always demands. These things always come from the side of the woman, not from the man. The man is always passive. He'll go after the women. Just like in every family, in every culture, whatever happens, it comes from nature. Doesn't matter what religion, what what civilization, the woman inside the house, she determines what a house is. And now that the planet is becoming the home for everyone, a woman needs to determine. It's not that us men can just leave ourselves out of it and we can just wait for her to call us off the couch. But we have to do something, just the opposite. We have to give her all the options to shake up the whole world toward correction. And also in our educating our home, the small framework, and also in wider frameworks, right up to the role of Miriam in the entire world. Our time is up. Thank you very much, Rav Laitman. Thank you, Nitza. Thank you for being with us today. Until next time, all the best and so long.